All right, welcome back to the Nothing Is Wrong podcast. We've got a very special guest today, and this is like my favorite bridge between optimization world to the inner journey and tuning into yourself. And that is, well, we're going to get all into that. But Salim, welcome to the show, man. I'm stoked to have you here.
Man, great to be here. And I'm in love with the title of your podcast, Nothing is Wrong, because I truly believe that. And that's a lot of the work and what we'll be getting into is all about is that relationship to trusting that nothing is wrong. And when that happens, surprisingly, things start to go right. Right.
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a paradox for sure. And man, I mean so many elements of your story resonate with me. I'm familiar with it, but I mean, I think most people that find HRV come to it as an optimizer, as something that's like, ooh, I'm going to get somewhere. I'm going to become better. And as we just said, like really, this is kind of the Trojan horse to me in getting back around to that fact that nothing is wrong. So what was the point that you started to realize that the data of HRV, which we'll get into what that means and everything like that here in a bit, but what was the point that you started to realize it was pointing inward and not outward to something externally?
Yeah, you're using my language too, the Trojan horse. That's what I call it. I love it.
I love it.
I started to realize when I first came across HRV really on the O-ring when it first came out like 7 years ago, but didn't had no idea what it was like most people do. All I cared about was my readiness score, my sleep score. I see this little biomarker, don't understand it, whatever. And it wasn't until I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural, that in I think the preface or in the early chapter, he mentions heart rate variability and relates it to stress. And the second my engineering, analytical, curious mind like read that sentence, I went on a whole I had like a download and just an epiphany because I knew from extreme my extreme travels and journeys in the biohacking world and just wanting to understand longevity because I was obsessed with longevity in health. I knew that science has very much proven in this simulation dimension, whatever you want to call this reality, we all age, get disease, and eventually die from cellular inflammation. Period. End of story. Root cause of everything, unless you die in an accident, is cellular inflammation. And no scientist, no doctor will argue with that fundamental statement. Science has also proven that the number one leading cause of cellular inflammation, chronic stress. And I knew that equation like deeply. And the second I read that sentence, I was like, well, wait, you have the ability to get an objective biomarker, a piece of data that's measuring your relationship to stress. Oh man, this is the only thing I'm going to care about because all I cared about is longevity. And so I spent the first 6 months, 3 to 6 months, trying to hack it like I did everything else in my life. And it wasn't really moving. And I was like, okay, I understand analytically I need to improve this. Everything I'm doing isn't working. What else can I do? And that's when the inward journey started. And that's when, my framework came about and my pathways and all the things I'm sure we'll get into. But that was really for me. I tried doing what most people do. And I think you're so spot on. A lot of the clients I work with, the people that I hear when they hear about HRV, it's always, I want to optimize it. I want to improve it because they fundamentally understand the importance in longevity, which I love. And that's why I call it a Trojan horse, because it bridges objectivity with actually subjectivity. Like it is literally, I think, where East meets West, and it's a way to get people to begin their journey from here to here, like it did very much for my extreme analytical mind.
Amazing, dude. Yeah, it's so funny too because like stress, like that word, everyone like go find someone that says they're not stressed, Everyone or most people are going to say they're stressed, but it's like what does it mean? Are we talking psychological stress? Are we talking physiological stress? There's so many different elements. And I love how HRV gives us a starting point to even begin to look at it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I think it's super important to really notate science has proven that chronic stress is the lead cause of cellular inflammation. Stress is not a bad thing. Stress is actually, if you understand it and learn to listen and dance with it, it's your best friend in your journey towards nervous system sovereignty and improving your HRV, which we'll get into. So stress is not the enemy. It's prolonged high beta sympathetic activation, known as chronic stress, meaning staying in that stressful state for a long period of time, that is the leading cause of the cellular inflammation. And again, the engineer in me needed to understand why is chronic stress the leading cause of cellular inflammation, right? I need to understand how things work, otherwise I can't, it's just how my brain goes. And so I looked deeply into the most intricate system that governs 90% of our voluntary and involuntary functions that we learn so little about, the autonomic nervous system, right? This is the thing that literally is keeping us going. It operates our heart, our lungs, our digestion, all these things that are happening subconsciously are run by this electrical system, right? And this system operates in two primary states: sympathetic, fight or flight; parasympathetic, rest and digest. We don't need to get into the details unless you want to on how each of them go. It's fascinating, but the important thing to just tie back to why chronic stress leads to cellular inflammation is that sympathetic fight or flight state, right? Mm-hmm. And to really understand this state of the nervous system, we need to look at evolution and how we as humans developed this activation for survival, right? And evolution does not make mistakes. Its sole responsibility is procreation and survival, right? That's what it's here to do. And so for most of human evolution, over 95% of it, we were living in nature. We did not have the privilege and the luxury, like most of us do, of a roof over our heads, of running water, of, as you drink water, of food, right? And we had actual real life or death threats. And so our incredible sacred vessel temple of bodies cultivated and developed this sympathetic activation to support us surviving in those states. So that if a predator, like a tiger, all of a sudden appeared in the middle of the night, we could turn on to actually support our survival. So what's happening internally? As soon as the mind perceives a threat, like a tiger, right, it fires signals to the amygdala, which then sends all these signals to our organs to start responding accordingly, right? Our eyes dilate to let in more light. Saliva production slows down, which you may not think is a big deal, but all of our nutrient absorption comes through our saliva. But the most important thing to tie back to the cellular inflammation is all of the vital oxygenated blood that is normally flowing into our visceral organs, meaning our lungs, our digestion, our reproduction, all right here in the abdominal, gets diverted to the extremities, to the arms and legs, so that we could run, fight, or freeze. Brilliant, brilliant response if we have to run. And we used to only do that for an hour, maybe two, and then we'd be safe and we'd be able to drop back into a parasympathetic state, so all that vital oxygenated blood can go back to the organs so they could continue maintaining homeostasis of the body and taking care of it. However, fast forward to today, there's no more tigers. We wake up and check our phone and read an email or get in an argument with a spouse. And most people are so guilty of staying in this mind-made perceived sympathetic stress state for 8, 10, 12 hours a day until they go back to sleep, day over day, which means all that vital oxygenated blood that's normally going here is still staying out here, not allowing our brilliant organs to maintain homeostasis and clean the body. And so what happens? Cellular inflammation begins, right? And I really wanted to double down and share that to start because it's such a foundational piece. For me, it was, as an analytical thinker, to know, it's actually super important to be aware if I'm triggered and in a stressful state, and as much as possible, not stay in it for a long period of time, because that is how cellular inflammation begins.
Beautiful. And I think one thing that I've heard you talk on before that I think is super important to highlight as we talk through this. I made the mistake when I started, quote unquote, slowing down, that I thought it had to be separate from like my day-to-day activities. And can you speak to just real quick before we dive into more detail, like it's a lot more about how you're going about the same, because a lot of people hear this and be like, well, I have kids and I have a job and I don't have time to, and it's like, how would you address that when it comes to like, I don't have time to slow down?
There's so many different ways I'd address that. It's usually one of the top things when I work with a client they come with, because it's usually people who don't now. Time is a whole funny thing that we're not going to go down that rabbit hole in here. But what I would say is that I'm not saying to stop, and I'm not saying to continue staying in that stressful state when needed. I'm saying take a moment to get out of it and go back in it, right? It's that pause between, it's that training, right? And it's one of the pathways we'll get into, hormetic stress. Stress, again, is your friend. Go out there and have an impact in the world, but just don't stay in it for 10, 12 hours straight. Dip in and out of it, and it's your training ground. It's how I was able to take my baseline of HRV from 30 to above 170. Wasn't by stopping and just going to Bali and sitting. I actually continued running my beverage company, raising money from 170 people, but would consciously throughout the day multiple times use technologies, use breath work, use contrast therapy to drop my body into a parasympathetic state and then go back into the sympathetic state and continue doing and being busy, right? And so it is just being aware, having agency and sovereignty over your internal state so that those organs can get some of that vital oxygenated blood in them to continue doing what they need to do and not be on, oh my God, we're about to die the entire day.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, the word that's coming to mind for me is flexibility, It's the ability to go each direction. And ironically, I imagine the more we flex that muscle, we can actually get much higher energy. Like, it reduces that instead of just being like gas and brake at the same time, we get the ability to really slow down, but also really speed up when we need to, but then bring ourselves right back down after.
Yeah, your capacity is drastically increased, right? And that's why, I intentionally say and use the word nervous system sovereignty and not nervous system regulation. And I love the fact that everybody's talking about nervous system regulation. It's so important, yes, to have a regulated nervous system. But my truth is, we didn't come here as humans to be regulated all the time. And to your point, if you're regulated all the time, you cannot go and increase the capacity of your nervous system to handle more stress, right? It is the process of getting dysregulated, bringing that sovereignty and agency, training the nervous system that, oh, it's actually okay to increase the malleability and resilience of your nervous system to actually go handle more stress, have a bigger impact in the world, right? So having agency and sovereignty over that internal state gives you that ability to increase the capacity. And it's 100% how I took mine from baseline of 30 to above 170 by training it.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so HRV, heart rate variability. Basically everything you're talking about, autonomic nervous system, it's my understanding HRV is basically just a great biomarker to kind of take a look at what's going on there. Is that right?
It's one way to think of it. Yeah, first let's say, so HRV stands for heart rate variability. So it's measuring the gap or the variance between each of those heartbeats. That indicates so many things. One, how your nervous system is perceiving this current moment, its reality. Two, a reflection of the health of the autonomic nervous system and its ability to shift from a sympathetic fight or flight state into a parasympathetic rest and digest state, right? And so everything that we're talking about, the importance of nervous system, this is, in my opinion, and science has proven, one of the best barometers to be aware of the overall health, resilience, and capacity of your nervous system.
Cool. And real quick, measuring it. You mentioned Oura Ring earlier. is it very like if someone's never heard of this before, how would you recommend easiest way?
Yeah, so this question gets asked all the time. All the wearables, Oura Ring, Whoop, Apple Watch, Garmin, like all very similar one in terms of accuracy and what they give. So what to me, it's the consistency of actually measuring it because let's actually rewind a little bit. First, let's talk about like what you want to target, right? A higher HRV, meaning a wider gap or variance between each heartbeat, indicates a more malleable and resilient nervous system that could handle the ever-changing environment, right? So you want to increase that capacity to your point. On the flip side, a lower gap or variance between each heartbeat indicates a more rigid nervous system, and that which is rigid eventually breaks. So the higher the gap, the more healthy the nervous system. Now, that being said, this has been researched for decades, and science has yet to publish a range and a target. Why? Because science has proven that this biomarker is so uniquely individualized to the person. And just like there's no two fingerprints that are the same, there's no two heartbeats in the world that are the same. Meaning you cannot compare your score to anybody else's, and you cannot compare your score to a number you think you should get to. Because guess what? If this biomarker is measuring how you are perceiving your reality, how do we perceive our reality? Through our senses, through our touch, through our taste, through our smell, through our sight, through our ears, but most of all through our thought, through our relationship to it. And if we think we have a bad score, if we think someone has a better score, if we think we're not good enough, if we think there's something wrong, guess what? We're maintaining that lower score, right? And so that's why it's such a beautiful, interesting biomarker because it's objective, but your relationship and your mental and emotional thoughts very much impact it. So then the question becomes, okay, well, if that's the case, then what are you supposed to do with this score? How do you use it, right? And that's where I like to bring in this term HRV baseline, which I define as your average HRV score over the last 30 days. Because the only person you should ever compare the score to is yourself, right? One way I really like to talk about HRV is as a language. It's the language in which your nervous system is communicating with you through that space between each heartbeat. And when you think of languages, you don't think English is better than Spanish, is better than French, right? The whole intention of a language is for an ecosystem within a community to communicate. The sole intent of your HRV is for your nervous system to communicate only with you. So the best thing you could do in languages is listen. So if you become aware of your baseline score, meaning your average score over the last 30 days, let's say it's 40, and you wake up in the morning and your morning score is 20. Most people will be like, oh man, that's such a low score. Shit. Well, it's just data. It's language. What that's actually telling you is whatever you did the day before is more of a load on the body than it's been used to over the last 30 days. That's not a bad thing. Listen and honor it. Do something that nourishes your body. Go for a leisurely walk instead of pushing it harder at the gym. Maybe don't stay up too late working, doing what we're so programmed in the West. We need to keep pushing, right? Doesn't mean you don't push, but on days when you've pushed too hard and your body is asking for a rest, listen. On the flip side, if you wake up, your baseline's 40 and your score is 60, it's your nervous system giving you permission to actually push it consciously. It could handle a little more of a stress because whatever you did the day before, it was more nourishing for it. And when you utilize it like that and actually consistently listen, I guarantee you over time, you will start to see the baseline go up, which the one thing science has proven is as we age, HRV declines, which makes total sense because we see so much more stress on the body. However, in myself and clients and anybody that I've worked with, I've seen the opposite happen where it actually goes up because we're training it.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. I think I love how there's no hiding from this metric. Like you can tell yourself all the things. You can, I made this much money. I look this way in the mirror, but this you can't hide from it. And you can't hack it with a pill.
Man, it's so true. I always say, like, listen, it's data. What you choose to do with the data, totally up to
Yeah.
you. But it is, in my opinion, the most honest reflection of what your body wants. And the perfect example is, during those 3 to 6 months when I first discovered it and was trying to hack it, I was living in New York City. And New York City is a very heavy drinking city, and I enjoyed drinking. And so I was like, I committed to doing whatever it takes to see this change. And so I'd go out drinking, I'd have a very low HRV scale. That's a fluke. Next weekend, go out again, that's a fluke. Until I started to listen, I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? Drinking is not resonant for me in this time. Now, that doesn't mean drinking's bad, and that doesn't mean drinking isn't resonant for other people. Just for me, particularly, which I've come to find, I have a slight allergen to alcohol, but I was so in it, right? So it's nothing is wrong with anything you do. You just need to listen to your body and what is resonant for it. And to your point, this is the most honest indicator of what your body wants.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. The first couple times I was tracking mine, like when I was in college. I didn't know much about it. This is a long, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Alcohol will nuke that thing. I remember mine coming down like 80%. I mean, granted, I wasn't just having a few drinks, like I was having a ton of drinks, but I was shocked.
Well, and just, I mean, trust me, look deep into that. Yes, alcohol is toxic for the body, but how our society utilizes it, one, not in moderation, two, at night. Like, if
Yeah.
you understand the physiology of the body, our liver starts working from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. to detox our body at night. That's the circadian rhythm. Meanwhile, we are sitting there putting more toxic in the body. It's the most comic joke when you realize that, right? So again, like there's been alcohol in society for millennia, drinking wine like all these things. So I'm not saying alcohol is bad, but just listen to what your body's asking for, especially how you're using it. And I was the most guilty of at night binge drinking. Like, yes, that's going to tank your nervous system and your HRV logically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can feel it. You don't necessarily need that number but yeah. Okay, cool. So when it comes to improving it, I mean, another thing I've resonated so much from your story is just that check the box mentality, that 3 to 6 months that you spent trying to hack it, trying to do the things. And I spent so much time in my life doing the exact same thing where I was checking the boxes. I'm like, what's the best breath work protocol for me? But I was doing things on the outside, but I wasn't tuning inward. And so can you expand a bit on this? You can't hack it. Like what do you mean by that, and what's required to actually start improving it?
Yeah, I think, man, I resonate so deeply with that. I think it may be a good time to kind of first just share a little bit of my backstory so
Yeah,
you can understand how extreme I was in that and then
for
go
sure.
into how I started. So I was I was born and raised in New York, a little upstate New York, and I'm first generation Lebanese. And I lost my father at the age of 7 from cancer, and I was the oldest of three. So much of my formative years and my programming and how I see the world was imprinted around this belief of needing to protect, support, provide, not let people down, right? And I ended up going to college for engineering. And when I graduated, my grandma, who was like my second mom, got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was like, what is going on with the world? Everybody I know is impacted by this thing called cancer. And so I took that engineering curious mind and went down a rabbit hole of health, specifically around nutrition and physical health. I was working at a nuclear power plant as an engineer when I graduated. And that's when I really I started changing my diet, and it was maybe like 18 years ago I discovered ketosis, and I totally cut out sugar from my diet, and I fell in love with the clarity, the energy, all the things that when you produce ketones endogenously happen. And so I'd only drink water and unsweetened tea. And a colleague of mine at the power plant was obsessed with tea as well and bubbles. And one day we brewed up some mate tea, we cooled it, we bought a soda stream, and we made the first sparkling tea. And it was like a light bulb. Oh my God, I want to do this, go all in, and dove into entrepreneurship. We quit the nuclear power plant job and went all in on launching this beverage company called Sound Beverages, the first unsweetened sparkling organic tea in America. No idea what we're getting into. But it was at that time that the biohacking movement emerged with Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield. So I had moved into New York City, already obsessed with health and wellness, now obsessed with longevity and biohacking, trying everything. I mean, you get every kind of thing. I read Ben Greenfield's book, Asprey, like you name it, I was doing it to the point that I was showing off. I was hacking my way to 5 hours of sleep a night, running 10 miles every other day, listening to a minimum of 3 audiobooks a week, raising money from 170 people, thinking I'm winning in this game of life, right? Doing the typical thing that you described, optimizing, pushing. I did that for 5 years, including one a day meals, every week a 48-hour fast, like all the crazy stuff you could imagine. This was, literally 13 years ago, 10 years ago. And finally, my body broke down with a knee injury, and I was so addicted to the endorphin release of running 10 miles that I needed to find another outlet. And I found Bikram yoga. And it was the first time my mind was forced to shut the fuck up for 90 minutes. And that is when I read Dr. Joe's book, Becoming Supernatural. And that's when kind of HRV happened. So that was really the beginning of that, like, oh, it's not always just about pushing, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned, I tried the first 3 to 6 months to hack this biomarker and nothing changed. And that's when I've spent now the past 7 years really trying to answer that question, well, how do you improve this biomarker? And I came up with my framework that I call the art of the heart. And ART stands for awareness, regulation, transformation. And this is a 3-act arc that isn't a ladder we climb once and we made it to the top and we're regulated and we think we've won this game like we're so programmed and used to. But it's rather a daily act of devotion towards listening to your nervous system, towards partnering with your nervous system. And so how you improve it is by going through this framework, by bringing awareness to your internal state, to what is happening, how you're reacting, by utilizing different tools and modalities that resonate with your body to regulate that inner state. And if you consistently show up bringing awareness and regulation, over time, transformation happens. And so within this framework, I developed 5 pathways towards HRV growth and nervous system sovereignty that kind of follow the rest of my journey. And so the first pathway is sleep as the foundation, which should not come as a surprise. We know the importance of sleep. However, your boy, back if we were on the story, I was showing off I was hacking my way to 5 hours of sleep a night. I didn't get REM sleep for almost like 4 years because I was cutting out that last sleep cycle. And it was not until I started honoring and revering sleep that I started to see my baseline begin to improve, right? And I don't think we need to go into the details of why, but the foundational piece has everything to do with that circadian rhythm that we talked about, right? And that internal clock that is governing all of those vital organs that are keeping the homeostasis in our body going. And sleep is also when your body's in your deepest delta state in the parasympathetic side, where your nervous system is getting a total reset. So if HRV is measuring your ability to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic, and you're cutting out your deepest parasympathetic, it's going to be very, very hard to see that baseline go up. So sleep as the foundation, crucial. Pathway number 2, and this goes back to what you first talked about on this podcast, hormetic stress, the catalyst. And for those unfamiliar with hormetic stress or hormesis, are you familiar?
Basically, stress that we can adapt to, right? Instead of get wrecked by.
Totally. It's intentionally eliciting a stressful state, but then consciously taking the body out into a parasympathetic state. The best analogy I give for that is weight training, right? When we go to the gym to work out our bicep, we're lifting more muscle or more weight than the bicep muscle can handle, tearing the fibers in the bicep muscle. And then what do we do the next day?
Chill.
We rest it so that on the following day, we can go lift more weight, increasing the capacity of it. That is hormetic stress in action. And guess what? We can do that with our nervous system. And the good news, which you so beautifully articulated, none of us have a problem putting ourselves in a stressful state. In fact, that's the whole point of this experience, right? Stress isn't the problem. The problem that I was the most guilty of was not going back and completing the equation and putting myself in a parasympathetic state until I went to sleep. And so this is where concepts like NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, that we talk about in the biohacking community, are crucial, because to drop the body in parasympathetic states throughout the day, vital for HRV optimization. So back to my story, I didn't just say, okay, I care about this biomarker, I'm gonna go on a beach and forget about life. I was like, no, I'm still gonna run this beverage company, but I'm gonna train, I'm gonna utilize the stress of running the beverage company of investors to work on increasing the capacity of my nervous system. And I'm gonna use every technology and modality I know of to support me dropping in a parasympathetic state as efficiently as possible, and then going back to do the things in the world. So I had, people called it the Salim experience. I had this like 20-minute protocol that used binaural beats and a PEMF mat and a hydrogen inhaler and an infrared blanket that was in my New York City studio apartment that I would do at least once a day in the middle of the day. I would do box breathing between investor calls, contract, you name it. I was doing everything possible to go from that baseline of about 30 up to like 130, 140 over the next 2 years by consistently training the nervous system. Boom, 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 right? That is hormetic stress in action. So pathway 1, sleep. 2, hormetic stress. Pathway 3, reframing the shift. So I ended up just taking my extreme mind from, wanting to optimize to wanting to improve this biomarker, and I thought I was winning the game of life. I had it up to 170. I was running the beverage company, thinking I'm listening to my body. I'm doing good. And it was 9 years in the beverage, and on the outside, it looked like we were doing great. We were number 2 beverage in Whole Foods on the East Coast. We were opening up in 2,000 retailers nationwide. So with that, you need a lot of capital to keep up with the demand, and the beverage space is a very capital intensive industry. And one of the top sparkling water companies had just gone bankrupt, so VCs, institutes were very cognizant and not investing in this risky sector, in this risky industry. And I was struggling raising money to keep up with the demand and getting myself in debt. And it was on my birthday about 2.5, almost 3 years ago, in front of all of my friends and community, I asked to step into less doing, more being. A common statement echoed amongst entrepreneurs approaching burnout. And I got gifted on that birthday from all of my friends. They pooled money together and got me a Super 73 electronic bike, this like Burning Man style bike that I wanted. And I take said bike for its first spin on the Venice boardwalk, my backyard. The sun was setting. I remember thinking like, oh, it's all gonna work out. It always works out. The money's gonna come in when it needs to come in. Just trust. And I get in the silliest accident that anteriorly dislocates my right shoulder, tears my labrum, and fractures 30% of my shoulder socket off. I had to rush to the ER for them to relocate my shoulder. Tremendous pain. I wake up the next morning furious, not only in pain, but like, how can I raise money without a right shoulder? Why is this happening now? How? In my HRV that morning, 30 compared to the 170 that I was used to, rightfully so, because of the pain and because of my mental state. And luckily I had a call with my coach that day, and I tell him the story and he breaks out laughing. And I go, what the fuck is so funny? And he goes, let's break down the body spiritually. The arms represent the doing. The torso, the body, represents the being. The shoulder connects the doing to the being. What did you ask for on your birthday? Less doing, more being. What did you get? exactly what you asked for from the gift in front of everybody that you asked for it, how could you not laugh at the cosmic joke of this universe? And the second he said that, I broke out laughing and I was like, oh wow, my body is now yelling at me to let go of this 9-year beverage baby and step into what it wants now, which was I started coaching around HRV. I started talking about nervous system sovereignty. But because I had collected money from 170 family and friends, and because I was running on a program that I can't let people down, I refused to give my energy anywhere else but this thing until my body forced me to, right? And so I was like, okay, I get it. I need to let it go. And I shit you not, 24 hours later, I wake up, same dislocated shoulder, same excruciating pain, but my HRV score was 97. It tripled simply from me changing my relationship to the injury happening for me. That is the power of reframing.
Yeah, and isn't there a lot of research around perceived stress versus objective stress?
100%. And in the most polite way, I believe everything is perceived stress, right? Truly, because again, it goes back to the educational simulation in a much deeper conversation. But whatever, science has proven that we co-create this reality. And I believe that what we're co-creating is stuff that we need to feel internally. So yes, totally important to be aware that we are perceiving the stress, and our relationship to that stress is actually what matters more than anything else, right? And that's the whole intention behind the pathway of reframing.
Beautiful.
So we have sleep, we have hormetic stress, we have reframing. Pathway number 4 is intentionality, the alignment. And this goes back to my story. So, I had said, okay, I'm going to let go of the beverage, but before letting it go, I had all these people that believed in it. I wasn't just going to, allow it to go. I was going to see if there's anything that can be done. And it took about 6 months. And we found the holding company that acquires the stress beverages. And we put together an asset purchase agreement where they purchased the brand and asset, formed a new company. We convinced them to take our cap table and our shareholders to own some of the new company. And they took the debt to our suppliers so that they could keep producing. However, the rest of the debt fell on the company's shoulder, which we dissolved. And I was the guarantor on, so literally fell on my shoulder. So I had to go through personal bankruptcy, the final dissolution of every part of my identity, financially, physically, emotionally. All the things needed to be torn apart because of how extreme and strong and much I wasn't listening to become aware of what my body actually wanted. And so that all happened, and I did what most people do in that situation. I went to Bali to find myself. And every morning I would get up and I would contemplate my beautiful wish, less doing, more being. And every morning, my incessant mind would go through the battle and the struggle that you talked about. Like, we love doing, we're so good at doing. Why would we stop doing? Like, what are we going to do if we're not doing? We don't want to just sit here. And finally, one morning, I had this epiphany. That statement, less doing and more being, is mind-made and dualistic in nature. And it implies that doing and being are mutually exclusive. When the reality is, we're always being, even though we're unaware of it 99% of the time. And we're always doing, even if we're sitting, or sleeping, or breathing. So it's not about doing less and being more. It's about the intentionality in your doing, the why behind your doing. And what I have come to find in my journey is that HRV is a direct compass pointing you towards what your body wants to be doing, towards your highest self, towards your purpose, right? And a compass needs 3 points to triangulate. So in this situation, the 3 points are 1, what you're perceiving, 2, how you're responding to what you're perceiving, and 3, something to compare it to, your why, your intention. And most people, myself most guilty of, are running on an old program, an old story, an old belief that was needed to build the thing. Like I needed that fuel and drive of not wanting to let people down, of wanting to support, to build the business I built. But it does not need to stay at that level for that long. And the body is not, as the body evolves, we need to evolve with it and not run on the old program. So if you are not constantly auditing your why, your intention behind things, then you're running on an old program and your HRV will very much reflect that, right? So to be super clear on your intention, on your purpose, I cannot emphasize the importance for HRV growth and nervous system sovereignty, which most people don't realize. So that's pathway number 4. So sleep, hormetic stress, reframing, intentionality. Pathway number 5, community, the amplifier. And this also should not come as a surprise, as it's been so researched in every blue zone in the world. One of the pillars is community. The longest study in human history, the Harvard 80-year case study. Not sure if you've heard of it, an incredible one. If you hadn't, highly recommend going to watch the TED Talk on it. I cry every time. But they take 72 youth in the Boston area and follow every aspect of their lives from age 18 for the next 80 years, including medical records, interviews with spouses, colleagues, children, all the data and information you could possibly imagine to see what led to a longer, healthier, happier life. And after 80 years and 3 generations of scientists looking through this data, they came back with one thing, and it was relationships. And not quantity, but quality. Why? This has everything to do with nervous system health. All a nervous system ever wants, safety. It's its sole job, to make you feel safe. And one of the things that makes us feel most safe is to be authentically seen in relationship by someone else, to not have to wear a mask, to just be, right? And so when you are in a quality relationship with someone that resonates with you, that you don't need to be rigid and tight for, it is so nourishing for our nervous system. And so that's why community is the amplifier and the 5th pathway for HRV growth.
Amazing. That's incredible. And I love how it seems to me that like 1 and 2, sleep and hermetic stress, are kind of like a bottom, more of the bottom up approach. Does that sound like it's
More what most people are doing and understand? But the thing that I will say with the hormetic stress one, that I was very guilty of, and I think most people are, is only doing the optimization material, trying to push it, like hacking my way to 5 hours of sleep. And that's where I think the biohacking industry can get dangerous. But I like to say bioharmonizing. If you utilize these technologies to support your hormetic stress journey and balance the parasympathetic restoration as much as you're balancing the sympathetic optimization, that's where the magic comes. So just to realize that you need to do both sides of the hormetic stress equation, that I think most people in the extreme phase, like myself, miss on that pathway number 2.
Yeah, okay. Well, real quick.
Yeah.
When someone is in the mode, because I always joke that, and it sounds like this is where you were when you found Bikram yoga. It was like, tell me, I'll do anything except do nothing else. You know, it's like, tell me what to add. It's like you're sleeping 5 hours a night. You're doing all the things. You've got every biohack in the world, but you won't slow down and just sit for 10 minutes or whatever it is. So what are your favorite down-regulating? You mentioned the non-sleep deep rest is one of your favorite ones. What are some other ways to flex that parasympathetic tone throughout your day? What are your go-tos there?
Yeah, hands down. And the NSDR, there's so many different ways to get into that. And I'm about to share my favorite technology. It's called Newcom, Nucalm. It's the only patented technology guaranteed to get the body in a parasympathetic state through binaural beats. No substances, no external thing. Binaural beats, incredible phenomenon, been around for a long time. You could YouTube and find binaural beats. but theirs is very different. What binaural beats do, just from a physiological standpoint to share with the audience, is it's the phenomena of taking two different frequencies in each ear. And so, for example, 16 hertz in one ear, 10 hertz in the other ear, your brain gets confused and chases the delta. So it'll go to 6 hertz. So it's a way to guide your brain into a desired state. And 6 hertz is that theta, parasympathetic, relaxed. And so for people who have very strong monkey minds, analytical minds, you listen to this 20-minute track, 30-minute track, they have all different tracks, and Tony Robbins calls it the best power nap. It was a way to force my monkey mind in the middle of the day into that parasympathetic side. So incredible technology. I have a discount code for them, that HRV guy. If you actually go take my HRV quiz, that technology is included in the PDF with so many of my other favorites that support the NSDR and stuff like that. But that is, I almost do that, if not daily, 5 times a week. It's the first thing I tell any client. Are you smiling? Do you use it?
Dude, I just got onto this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's...
From who?
I think I heard Jim on Luke's story. Yeah.
He's a dear brother, and I've been on Luke. Yeah. It is unbelievable. I hope you put in a little discount code or something, and if you didn't, you should take mine. It's a nice 15% off your subscription.
Yeah, I'll add it for sure. Dude, it's so great. And it's because it's one of those things that, I mean, it's fascinating because I've done a lot of meditation and non-sleep deep rest, but that can be really hard to drop into mid-afternoon, on your own.
Especially if you're in the middle of your workday and you have so much other shit you need to do. It was impossible for me. I couldn't go sit and meditate in the middle of the day in New York when I have 170 people no, not possible. And that's where these technologies are so incredible if you experiment with them and listen to what's resonant with your body. If you bring that art framework, right? I was like, okay, I know I need to get here. I'm aware I'm stressed. What can I do to bring regulation to my body so that I can get into that state?
Yeah. It's because and that goes back to our society, because you can hear the do more, you need to earn it, you need to suffer through it, where it's like, okay, but let's be realistic. If someone has 20 minutes and they're going to sit there and it's going to take the full 20 minutes to maybe quiet that monkey mind down versus Newcom, it's like 5 to 10 minutes, gone. It's fascinating to watch it just turn the dial down so quickly and predictably, most importantly.
I'm so glad you got into that, man. That's gonna be a lifelong asset for you. So, well done. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, I haven't stopped talking about it. I'm sending it to family, friends, all my clients on our health and fitness coaching side. I won't stop talking about it, but that's awesome.
Beautiful.
Okay, cool. So Newcom. That one, what's the shortest one in there? 20 minutes?
20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so at least 20 minutes.
That's because, and this is why they have the patent. If you were to, people are like, oh, I'm just going to YouTube, I'm not going to pay a subscription. Yeah. But most of the stuff out there will literally just do 16 hertz one ear, 10 hertz the other ear, and maintain it. And our monkey mind is so strong that after listening, it'll work the first time, the second time, that maybe the fifth, sixth time, but after a while, your brain will pick up the pattern and it'll stop working. Why Newcom works all the time, I've been using it for a decade, is because it doesn't just go 16-10. The first 12 minutes of every track, including the 20-minute one, takes your brain slowly down to 6, meaning it goes a delta of 16, 15, 14, slowly guiding it down. And then when it gets 2 to 6, it oscillates 5.8, 6.2 for those, if it's a 20-minute one, 6, 7 minutes. And then at the end of the track, they bring you back up so you don't wake up groggy. You go back to that state so you could go out and do what you need to do, right? And so that is why it is just, it's such an incredible technology, decades of research and some of the best neuroscience and sound engineers behind it.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, I've even noticed with, back in the day when I'd be listening to the same meditation tracks, my mind is predicting what the guided person is going to say next in the meditation. And so, as you say that about your brain predicting it, I'm like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. Because I remember I'd have to switch meditation tracks because I'm just focusing on what they're saying next, and it just gets frustrating.
I mean, that's the mind loves pattern recognition. That's what it's here for, right? And so it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing when we harness it and use it, for our purpose. But it could also run wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Newcom, what are the other anything else you recommend for the down regulating practices throughout your day?
Yeah, man. And again, this is where I'll emphasize why I think, why I love HRV is because what works for me may have the opposite impact on you, right? Because how I perceive this moment is very different than how you perceive this moment. It has everything to do with our conditioning, upbringing, epigenetics, ancestors. All those things factor into how we're relating to this moment, meaning how our nervous system feels about this moment. And so we are so privileged and blessed to be in an age where we are inundated with so much information, technology, AI. There's so much out there we can go through, right? But just because it works for someone else does not mean it works for you. And the perfect example is cold therapy, cold plunging. I love it. It works great for me. For some females, especially during a certain ovulation cycle in their periods, it is actually dissonant and detrimental. And so this is where bringing the art framework and experimenting with all the stuff that we're so privileged to have access to, looking, if you can't feel it yourself, looking at your HRV score, because it's the most honest indicator. It will tell you if your body's resonant or dissonant with it, and being like, oh, wow, actually, this is dissonant for my body. Even though 90% of the world is saying this works for them, this does not work for me. I need to go try something else. And honoring what your body says, because truly, that is the ultimate guru, your body. Nobody and nothing outside can heal you. You have all the power inside if you just listen.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, that's cool. And I love that because there's no 4-7-8 breathing versus box. It's like, hey, tune into yourself and see what resonates best.
Totally. And with that, I will say in the PDF, if you take my free quiz, it's a whole list of other technologies. Wholist is an incredible vagus nerve stimulator I use, Neurovisor, light therapy. I have all different breathing tools in there based on what it is. So I have a bunch of stuff that have worked for me that I use. And again, with the emphasis of like, you need to try and experiment what works for you, what doesn't. Apollo Neuro is a favorite technology of mine that uses vibration. So there's all these incredible tech out there. But at the end of the day, I don't know how it's going to impact you. I just know how it impacts me.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Okay. Where I'd love to go next here is you mentioned this briefly a little bit ago of this school of showing us what we need to feel and all these different technologies that you just mentioned and all these great things. A huge part of my journey lately has just been what the hell's going on in my body right now, and constantly going back to it over and over, and then the mind comes in and letting that go and getting back into my body. So that piece would you include that in number 4, that alignment intentionality, or how do you see that fitting in where it's just like emotional regulation or whatever? I mean, just feeling in general, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, that piece I would say fits into number 3,
Okay.
reframing. That has everything to do with what I call, and I said earlier, the educational simulation, which is my lingo, my language for what some people call the matrix, what some people call this simulation, this reality, this dimension. Because of my beautiful competitive mind, I intentionally use the word educational because I believe what we are materializing, what we are projecting, what we are perceiving as stress is always information around something we need to feel. So if you were to map out the body, anytime you're projecting, anytime you're perceiving, anytime you're seeing a challenge, a trigger, a stress, beneath that, there's always an emotion or multiple emotions associated with what you're seeing. And directly connected to that emotion is a physical sensation that's stuck in the body. And if you were to peel the onion one layer deeper, an emotion on a quantum level is just a scalar wave of frequency. It's just energy. There is no such thing as a good or bad emotion. And as humans, we're meant to feel every emotion on the spectrum. Anger, grief, joy, happiness, love. Feel all of them for about 90 seconds until that scalar wave moves through us. However, if the nervous system cannot process or handle that particular experience, sensation, emotion in that moment, or more often than not, we're in our formative years between the ages of 2 and 7, when our baseline brain state is theta, meaning we are susceptible, we're hypnotic, we're a sponge. We don't have a prefrontal cortex developed to discern any of this ourselves, so we accept reality as is. If a caregiver screams, yells, does something that we perceive as traumatic, that scalar wave of an emotion doesn't move through us, it freezes. I like to think of it as a glacier, and it forms the shape in the fascia in our body. There's an incredible book, The Body Keeps Score, that really goes much deeper into this and talks about how we are all grown-ups living in this adult meat suit, projecting all of our stuck, frozen emotions from this life, if you believe in past lives, from past lives, right, out there. And so to get back to your question of like, you so beautifully are on this journey of feeling, well, this is that art framework. You are now bringing awareness to that actually, this challenge at work or this argument with a friend that looks similar to one with a spouse that looks similar to, it's all repeated patterns, right? Well, beneath all of that is an underlying or multiple underlying emotions. And the whole reason your brilliant body has co-created and materialized this experience out here is to try to get you to get out of your mind and labeling it as wrong or bad, and just feel this frozen glacier of an emotion, because that's all an emotion ever wants, to be felt. And when you feel it, that glacier starts to melt, and then you don't have the same reaction that you had prior, and you have more access to your frontal cortex to choose to bring agency and sovereignty over how you want to respond.
Beautiful. Yeah, that Joseph Campbell quote, any feeling felt fully is bliss.
I say that all the time. One of my favorite quotes. That's what bliss is. Fully feeling every emotion, any emotion. That is bliss, including anger or grief.
Yeah. Which is like, on the surface, it's like, what are you talking about? That sucks. But then as you really get to it, it's like, what sucks about it? Oh, the story on it.
Because we think it's wrong to be angry. But the reality is, it's not wrong to be angry. It's wrong to react externally with that anger in an inappropriate way. And I will give you one of the best examples that a teacher of mine gave. Martin Luther King Jr. He utilized this emotion of anger to totally change the trajectory of so many people. He didn't go during the march and say, we're angry at them, let's go show them what this anger is. He's like, we're angry, don't you dare be violent. We're gonna show this anger and step above, and look what happened, right? And so again, he utilized anger as the fuel for change, but in a conscious way, not in a responsive, autonomic, young child version way that so many of us are so guilty of reacting, because again, that's all a nervous system knows. It's the safety. And I think it's super important that we bring compassion and grace to ourselves when we respond like that, because again, I always go back to just physiology and how a nervous system works. Its sole responsibility is safety. I liken it to an analogy of hospitals in Florida. They have this fail-safe button where if you hit it, all metal shutters come down to protect anybody inside from the glass if there's a hurricane or tornado, right? Brilliant program put in place to save people, correct? Mm-hmm. What happens if there's a shooter in the building and you hit that button? Not so brilliant of a program.
Right.
But it was birthed from a brilliant place to save people. That is how our nervous system works. It's on-off binary. So the second we perceive a threat, even if we know it's not a real threat, but if we have not felt that emotion, we get triggered, amygdala fires off, we have no access here to our intuition, to our memory, to our knowledge and what we know, we respond from the same place the program was birthed. That's why we could look back at an argument, or how the heck did I say that? How did I do? I know better. Yes, you know better, but the part of you that was responding doesn't know better. And until you fully feel that stuck emotion, you're not going to have access here, and you're going to be operating from back here. And that's so much of the work that I do with clients is just somatic work to really feel the things that it sounds like you're very much starting your journey to feel. And man, nothing I have seen in myself or clients have changed that baseline than bringing awareness to what I call your master program or core wound, and really starting to somatically feel all of those stuck sensations internally.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm excited to see. I mean, I'm a data nerd at heart, and I'm excited to see the changes there. But I'll say, like, it's really accelerated the last 3 to 6 months. And I had done so much, the books, all the things, and I feel like this body practice is just, it's taking all that. There's a lot of pieces I read 5-10 years ago that I'm like, oh, yeah. So it's just funny how that all comes together.
Uh-huh.
Cool, man. One thing I wanted to ask you about that I'm curious about: heart-brain coherence, and what the HeartMath Institute is measuring. Are they measuring, is coherence different than just a higher HRV? Or is that like a resonance point or something like that that's different than strictly how high or low your HRV is going?
It's slightly different, but very correlated and aligned, right?
Okay.
So heart-brain coherence is when there's a synchronized like rhythm between your heart and your brain waves and your breathing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which will improve your HRV because you are bringing that resonance, that stability, that regulation to the nervous system. So HeartMath Institute, I mean, that's one of the first ways I started training with HRV way back in the day. And I'm talking to them now about some potential collaborations. But yeah, cool. It's slightly different, but they go hand in hand.
Cool. Yeah, that was the first time I got into it too. I think their little device I had with a piece on my ear, and yeah, I remember my dad had a double lung transplant like 8 years ago, and I was using it at the hospital with him. And like normally when I was kind of upregulated, I could use that and it would take 2 or 3 minutes. I was sitting there and it took like 30 minutes. It's just wild to see. Even if your heart rate's lower, it's not necessarily incoherence. Yeah, it's fascinating. Cool, man. I'm trying to. I think we've covered everything that I had that I was curious about. Is there what? I love the framework. It makes so much sense. I love how you address it from all sides. One question I like to ask, and then I'd love to hear where people can find your quiz and everything like that. We'll put it below. But if you had 10 minutes with everyone on the globe, one time, what would you do with them or have them do?
Oof. 10 minutes with everybody on the globe in one time. Man, I'm gonna take an answer from, I forget who in Tribe of Mentors. Have you read Tribe of Mentors? Tim Ferriss. It's an incredible book that he interviews like 50 of the most successful people in the world and asks the same 10 questions. And one of his questions was, if you had a billboard, a magical billboard that the whole world could see, what would it say and why? So it's a similar question. And I'm going to answer it the way this person answered it because it gave me, I call them truth bumps, and I think it's so profound. I would have something unique for each person that would project a race or a human that they demonize or prejudice or think badly against, showing that race doing something humane that hits them in the heart, like at the deathbed of one of their children, or something that like really triggers a nerve, hits the heartstring of the person, to show that there's actually no difference between them, and it's a projection that we think they are different, but essentially we are all the same. We come from the same place, and I think compassion is such a incredible transmuter of hate, of separation. And I think so much of what we're seeing in the world is a product of separation and people trying to pin us against us. And I think the more that we can realize how similar we all are and really feel that empathy and compassion on a human level, the world will just be a much, much better place.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Awesome, man. Well, where can people get the quiz? What are you working on? What else do you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, very easy to find me everywhere. My brilliant friend came up with a great marketing. That HRV guy, THAT HRV guy. That's my social media handle. That's my website. On my website, you could see an HRV quiz right on there. 8 questions, simple questions. You get your HRV archetype, and an 18-page PDF that just goes deeper into a lot of the stuff we talked about, has links and discount codes to everything, including Newcom, which, side note, you definitely, and any family members, make sure you use the discount. And then in addition, I recently just launched a course that's 5 modules that goes a level deeper into what we talked about. It's about 2 hours of content, but the thing that's different that we didn't discuss is the last module is my HRV reset, which is my somatic activation that I do daily, that I guide any client through daily. That has been, I say, the best training ground to be that emotional athlete and really intentionally step into the arena of what you're projecting and feeling those sensations. And that's included both a video and a downloadable audible in the course as well. And you could find all that information on my website.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thanks for coming on, man. This was great.
Thanks you so much for having me, man. Really enjoyed and appreciated the conversation.
Yeah. See you guys later.